Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to Breakfast in the Class. Breakfast in the Class today is dedicated for the speedy and complete refuah shlema of our Rabbanit Chana Farhi Chana Batzim Fega, sponsored anonymously. Please make berachot for refuah. Also sponsored and dedicated for a speedy and complete refuah shlema for Rabbi Eli Abadi Eliyahu Shimon Ben Mazal Fortune. Please make berachot for his refuah. Breakfast in the Class is dedicated to Nishmat, loving memory Farangis Yafa Bat Yecheskel V'Zinat, on a Shiloshim, sponsored by our loving granddaughters Daniela and Asal Zagi. May her neshama have the highest aliyah in Shamayim. Tenishmat Tetzurah B'Tzurah Hayim. Also sponsored and dedicated in loving memory Ms. Lily Safra Aliyah Shalom Lilu Nishmat Leah Bat Chana. Her philanthropy has reached and continues to reach so many throughout the entire world. And dedicated in loving memory of Joseph's father Elliot Safra Lilu Nishmat Eliyahu Ben Jamil Yaakov, sponsored by Michelle and Joseph Safra. Finally, the week of Cobra was sponsored by David E. Ash in honor of you and your substantial capacity to do good today and every day. My friends, we discussed many of the elements of the Mishkan that help us understand what it looks like to build a Jewish home. Magnificent idea. Each part of it is, each element of this discussion can be a lifetime to perfect. And yet, it's such a powerful idea to be able to understand. And I think that if we take the time and went through the parasha and tried to look at each element that's being discussed, you'd see that the lessons there to be able to build a Jewish home and a fantastic space for HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world are worthwhile lessons to sit and to try and unearth. And we've discussed the lesson, or lessons from the Aron. We've discussed lessons as well from the Shulchan, from the Menorah. The last element I want to talk about is the Mizbeach. There's really only four elements, four Kli Sharet that feature in our parasha. There are others that don't make it into this parasha. And in fact, that's going to be the subject of Shabbat's class, called The Best House Has Four Pillars. And then I put a picture of the White House. But either way, the best, because it has four pillars in the front. Right? The best house has four pillars. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate because that's not the best house, and I don't like that. Okay, whatever. Calm yourself. It's just an example, and hopefully make you smile. Because But we'll talk a little bit about those four. The other elements of the Mishkan don't feature. So, as an example, what's missing? What's missing? The kior is missing. The laver, the thing that you used to wash, kiddush yadayim v'raglayim. Kohanim would wash their hands and feet before they would do the avodah. It's not in Teruma. What else is missing? The mizbeach hazahav. It's not here. Also not here. That means that these four elements form the cornerstones of what building the Mishkan was about. Do you need everything? Absolutely, you need everything. But there's a reason why the Torah chose to put these in the parasha that says V'asuli Mikdash. And that's going to be the subject of Shabbat Shi'ur. Why these four things? What are these four pillars that create the foundation of a Jewish home? That underpin the foundation of every Jewish marriage, of the building of children in a home. And that's going to be on Shabbat. So we've discussed, though, different elements of the first three throughout this week. The last thing I want to discuss for today is the last element in the parasha, which is V'asita ta mizbeach atzeh shittim. You should make the mizbeach out of cedar wood. V'tzipita ota, and you cover it with oto nechoshet, with copper. And that mizbeach is also known as the Mizbeach Adama. So we have the Mizbeach HaZahav. And just want to give you a 30-second infomercial about how these vessels worked and where they were in the temple. The Mizbeach Nechoshet, the copper Mizbeach or brass Mizbeach, that Mizbeach was made and it was in the Chatzer of either the Mishkan or of the Beit HaMikdash. And they would do the sacrifices, all of the korbanot, the olah, the shelamim, the chatat, the hasham talui, hasham badai, korban musaf, korban tamid, all of those korbanot, where they brought on the mizbeach nechoshet, on the mizbeach adama. That mizbeach is the external mizbeach. That's the mizbeach of the korbanot. There's another Mizbeach called the Mizbeach HaZahav, made of gold. Different Mizbeach. One of them is a square, right, that has a ramp leading up to it, and you would go and stand on top of it. The Mizbeach HaZahav has no ramp. You don't go on top of it, okay? And that Mizbeach is used not for korbanot, much smaller. It's used for the burning of the ketoret, of the incense. So there's, firstly, most people don't know, there's two Mizbeachs. One out of gold, one out of copper. The second thing people don't know is that there's two different things that we do with those Mizbeachs. One is for korbanot, of the animals that we would do, and the second is for the ketoret inside. What we are referring to here is the Mizbeach from outside. It's built out of cedar wood, okay? Covered over in, what's it called? In copper, in nechoshet. And then the inside of, why is it called the Mizbeach Adama, Mizbeach of earth, if it's copper and wood? The answer is, it was filled with earth. Where they would carry it empty, and then they would fill it with earth. It's the biggest of the kelim, okay? So, again, you'd think that this was an element, about weight, but odapam, like we already explained earlier with regards to Aaron, weight was not a problem. It's not an easy jet flight, okay? Where they're weighing your suitcases. Weight was not a problem that we cared about because the people were carried by the kelim that they carried, if that was necessary. So the idea here is something deeper than that, and I want to talk a little bit about what the idea behind the Mizbeach Nechoshet is. So why is the Mizbeach covered with copper? Why is it not covered with gold? So one of the simplest ideas, there's a fire that's burning there all the time. It's not like the Mizbeach of the Ketoret, which is a small amount. You're burning many korbanot all throughout the day. One of the things you need to know about gold is that it is easier, it's more pliable, it melts much more than copper does. So therefore, it was practical to make the Mizbeach out of Nechoshet. Rashi says something different. Rashi says, why is the Mizbeach made out of Nechoshet? Lechaper, in order to come and bring kapara, al azut hametzach, for the brazenness of a person's forehead. Okay? Now, that's a very interesting expression. Now, we use this expression all the time in Tachanun. What does azut metzach mean? A brazenness of metzach means the forehead. Where do we know that metzach means forehead? We have it by the Kohen Gadol, that he puts the tzitz al mitzcho tamid, on his forehead always. So the forehead of a person is called a metzach. So azut metzach means a brazenness of the forehead. What is that? What is that concept? Brazenness of the forehead. It means that a person has chutzpah, arrogance. I thought to myself, you know what, that may be the reason why we describe it that way, is because if you ever saw someone that's being arrogant or haughty, what do? Right? Their forehead is extended. I don't know if you noticed that. So when you're angry, what happens? When you're upset or you're concentrating, your forehead contracts. That's what happens. That's where you get the furrows of the brow. That's why they used to say if you meet someone who has no wrinkles on their forehead, either they never thought about anything or they have no worries. One or the other. Or they get extreme levels of Botox. Okay? There's a third option introduced, in our day that wasn't maybe available in previous times. Okay? However, the idea of azut metzach is that the person, he's not showing, he's concerned, he's not worried about you, and that's that brazenness of the forehead. Now, I wanted to illustrate what this concept is really communicating. That means that the Mizbeach comes to forgive for arrogance. How does the Mizbeach forgive for arrogance? And why is this connected? The pasuk in Yeshaya, okay? The pasuk says, umitzchacha nechusha. Your forehead is nechusha, it's copper. Okay? Since there's this pasuk, says Rashi, what we're trying to understand here is that there's a copper, a nechoshet mizbeach to forgive for arrogance. My friends, what is this lesson? What are we learning over here? How does the mizbeach mechaper on nechoshet? And what does this have to do with me and with you who are not bringing korbanot at all? I want to share what I think is a powerful idea. Every time when we learn Torah, what else do we need to reference to understand the Torah that we learn? Other parts of Torah. And what is beautiful, we've discussed this before, the more you learn, the more you're able to cross-reference. And when you understand an idea over here, you don't understand it on the simplest level, you realize that this is connected to this, and that's connected to that, and you're able to bring to bear a Talmid Chacham that has a much wider range of knowledge. is able to bring to bear those other Gemarot, Midrashim, Halachot that they've studied to be able to understand what you're learning here currently, locally, in a much better way. So I want to draw on something else. What else do we have that's made out of Nechoshet in the Torah? What else? Nope, not the staff to Moshe, but you got just very close. Nope. The correct bit was the staff bit. When the Jewish people in the desert were attacked by the snakes, they were dying from a plague that came because of their complaints. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent them the snakes. And what happened? He said, make for yourself a snake, okay? Nachash nechoshet. And he made the snakes out of copper, okay? And he put them on the staffs, and the people would stare at the copper, at the nechoshet, and they would become clear, and they would become cured. And the Gemara asks, what in the world? What is it about a copper snake that makes you healed? What does that have to do with anything? And the Gemara answers something unbelievable. Of course, the Gemara says, it's not about the snake, it's about looking up. But still, sorry? Exactly. Rashi says on the spot, Lashon nofel al lashon. The language of Nechoshet and the language of Nachash, those words are the same. Now, it sounds to me there's a lot of word play with the word Nechoshet going on over here. There's a Nachash Nechoshet, so we have a snake of copper. There's a Mizbeach Nechoshet, you know why? Because it says in the Pasuk, Mitzchacha, your forehead, Nechusha, is made of copper. Okay. So it gave me an example, and therefore the Mizbeach is made of copper. I want to show you something. I think that this is beautiful, okay? Nechoshet is one of the 3 expensive metals. Zahav, Kesef, Nechoshet. Okay? So you have gold, you have silver, and you have copper. In the Torah, all the time, those 3 are mentioned. But anytime you're talking about something which is a precious metal, which is expensive, which one of the 3 gets dropped? Nechoshet. Okay? So when we're talking about value, like these rare materials that are super special, what are they? Zahav, Kesef, those 2. Nechoshet's always dropped. So how does Nechoshet get itself on this list? Nechoshet was, in effect, a poor man's gold. Where do we find an example of this? The Gemara tells us that there was a certain man who made doors for the Beit HaMikdash. His name was Nicanor. Nicanor built doors made out of Nechoshet, out of copper, and donated them to the Beit HaMikdash. He came with the doors, he put them on the boat. They were very, very heavy. And there came time in the way to Jerusalem, there was a big storm, and everyone had to throw the heavy things overboard. They took the first one of his doors, they threw it in the ocean. They came to take the second door that he spent blood, sweat, and tears carving, for the Beit HaMikdash. He grabbed the door with both of his arms. He says, if you throw the second door in, you're throwing me in too. The people realize they're going to kill the guy. The guy's Majnun. He's holding onto the door. He's going to risk his life so as not to have the door go overboard. They decide not to. And in that moment of Mesirut Nefesh, the storm dies down. Says the Gemara, and a miracle happened for him. And they arrived in the port, okay? And the door made out of copper was floating alongside the boat. Out of the Mesirut Nefesh that he had for the door was floating alongside. He took the doors to the Beit HaMikdash. Listen to the end of the Gemara. The end of the Gemara says, he put those doors, he installed the doors in the Beit HaMikdash. When the Jewish people became wealthy, they started to make more money, they replaced all of the doors of the temple with doors of gold. Except for one set of doors, Sha'ar Nicanor. Why? 2 reasons. Because they were very shiny, says the Gemara. Shayum mazhirim, that they would shine like gold. That's what the Gemara says. Okay? Now the question is, I don't understand. I always ask this question. I don't understand. Did you want shiny doors? So then make them all out of Nechoshet and shine them like gold. Go for it. But if you wanted gold, what are you going to buy? Gold. So if they didn't buy shiny Nechoshet gold for the other doors, right? Why didn't they replace this one? And if Nechoshet, shiny Nechoshet was good enough, why didn't they use shiny Nechoshet for the other doors? Either way. And the answer, my friends, is that the shine of the Nechoshet doors was not the shine of copper. It was the shine of the action itself. The Mesirut Nefesh of his doors, that made them glow, it made them gleam. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu appreciated so much what Nachshon did. What I found amazing was when I was studying the Gemara, I opened up to the back, and you find, in the little tiny letters that you can only read with your reading glasses, even when you're 15, okay? Little tiny letters, you open up in the back of the Gemara, you'll see, Amad Michshol Shebayam, a storm rose in the sea. You know what the Marat Chiyut writes? If I'm not mistaken, it's Marat Chiyut. You know what he writes? He says, and the storm rose, Lenasoto, to test him. Normally you read the Gemara, the storm happened, why? Because storms happen. They threw the door over, why? Because they want to make the boat lighter. Now he comes up with this action of Mesirut Nefesh. The Marat Chiyut says, no. The whole point of the storm was to see how important the Nechoshet was for him. You might have a guy who makes a donation to the Beit Knesset. Why is he making a donation? Because he wants to see his name in lights. Okay? I'll never forget. If any of you ever has a chance to go to Eretz Israel, there's a very, I want to call it special, but it's more than special. It's a unique Beit Knesset. It's called Yazdim. It's a Beit Knesset of the Bukhari. In the Bukhari Shuk. It's like a non-stop minyanim, 6 different rooms, non-stop, all the whole day. Basically, you could pray there. That's what this place is like. One of the funniest places I've ever been to, because it has the most colorful characters that you could ever hope to meet are in this Beit Knesset. It's very, very funny. I'll never forget, I remember being there on Sukkot, after spending how many hours trying to find exactly the right lulav that's not chopped off at the top, that's not split. Someone was taking too long and going around Hakafot. One of the guys in the thing starts poking the guy, using his lulav to get him to go faster. Okay, it's a very funny place, I can't tell you. But in this place, one of the things I noticed is that they took anyone that decided that his grandmother passed away, he wanted to donate a light for the Beit Knesset. So they didn't ask anyone's permission. They just go to IKEA, buy a chandelier, and install it. There's 900 chandeliers in the room. So it looks like a lighting showroom. Nothing matches. There's one just running down the middle of the room. Someone will install a fluorescent light bulb. That one is wild. It's the funniest thing you can. And next to it, a little plaque. Okay? This guy made these beautiful doors. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to know, why do you want it? So we could call them Sha'ar Nikanor? So we could have a gate named after you in the Beit HaMikdash? Why? If the guy's willing to risk his life for it, that shows his value, how much he valued Nechoshet. My friends, this is the concept. Nechoshet is something that looks very valuable. It could shine just like gold, but it's not as expensive. It's not its counterpart. It's a fool's gold. And in fact, when you look at this Mizbeach, what is it full of? Earth. Again, this idea of the misrepresentation of value. Why does a person sin? The Mizbeach is designed to bring kapara. Why does a person sin? Sefarim tell us something beautiful. The Sefarim tell us, En Adam chote, ela imken nichnas bo ruach shtut. A person never sins unless he's overcome by a spirit of not just foolishness, but of insanity. You know who comes up with the first defense, insanity defense in the Torah? The Gemara. It's not something that some lawyer came up to get some criminal off. Okay? The first insanity defense is put forward by the Gemara. You did a sin, in that moment you were insane. Now, I have a question. I made a sin with the woman, with the money, with Shabbat. I did it because I'm insane. I did it because I was hungry. I wanted to eat a non-kosher hamburger. I'm insane? Maybe I'm insensitive. Why ruach shtut? The Chachamim say something unbelievable. What defines a person as being a shoteh? There's halachot about a shoteh, a person that's lost their mental capacity. What defines a person as being literally insane? The Gemara says when he holds on to things of no value and he discards things of great value. The guy's collecting rocks and throwing out money. That's a shoteh, okay? He has no capacity to understand what's important and what's not. I always remember this joke my grandpa told me. You have a guy, he comes to the psychiatrist. Psychiatrist, can I help you? He says, the truth is no. He says, what are you coming here for if you don't? He says, my family members made me come. He said, why'd they make you come if you don't? He says, there's nothing wrong with me. My family's all nuts, but they think that I'm crazy. He says, why? He says, why do they think that you're crazy? Understanding that the session has just begun, by the way. He says, why do they think you're crazy? He says, I like pancakes. The guy says, there's nothing wrong with liking pancakes. He says, you're not crazy. Your family is crazy if they think that you're crazy because you like pancakes. He goes, that's what I keep telling them. He goes, I'll tell you the truth. He goes, I also like pancakes. The psychiatrist tells the patient, in a rare moment of identification with the patient, he says, I also like pancakes. The guy said, you like pancakes? You should come to my house. My attic and basement are full of them. A shoteh is someone who doesn't understand what you hold on to and what you let go. What is truly valuable. Nechoshet represents the concept of someone recognizing what you hold on to and what you let go. Is that clear? To me, the story of the Jewish people complaining about silly things and getting punished with nechoshet, because the original Nachash says to Chava, eat from the tree. And Chava is like, yeah, it's ridiculous that I'm out. You're able to eat from every other tree and there's one you can't have. And the Nachash is like, no, this is the one you need to have. Throw out everything else, this one. She eats from that tree. That's the moment of the Nachash. That's the concept of nechoshet. Nikanor has a nechoshet moment. He's got two doors. He let them throw away one. And he says, if you throw away the second one, you're going to throw me away. Because for me, this is about HaKadosh Baruch Hu's honor, sanctifying God's name, something I poured everything into in order to be able to build a Beit HaMikdash. That made the most beautiful, shining doors. And my friends, in that moment, the Gemara teaches us the most beautiful lesson. Nachash is less valuable than gold, but gold is less valuable than Mesirut Nefesh. So when they replace all the doors, this one is the valuable one. He has this moment of letting go, of holding on. In the desert, the Jewish people complain, even though God's taking such good care of them. God says, look at the Nachash Nechoshet, you ingrateful children, or ungrateful children. If you could look and see that Nechoshet, you could recognize that what you're doing and what you're asking for, when I gave you the manna that tastes like everything and you want meat, you're asking me for avatiach, for melon, and you remember the melon in Egypt, moron. In Egypt, they were torturing you when you were slaves. Now you're a free man and you have manna that tastes like anything. But you don't see it in the same way, so you're going to complain about this one tiny thing? What you need to study, to focus on, is the Nachash Nechoshet. And I always love the idea. It's not that Moshe Rabbeinu takes a copper snake and says, guys, pass this around, like in show and tell. What do? Sam oto al nes. Most people, you think they put it on a stick. What does that tell you? It's high, so everyone could see it. What do? They put it on a stick. No. You ever see what they do when it became the symbol of medicine, right? What does a snake on a stake mean? That the snake is dead. They drove the stake through the snake. HaKadosh Baruch Hu asks the people, guys, this is you. Can you kill your own nechoshet? So the antidote, my friends, to this moment of insanity, HaKadosh Baruch Hu does everything for me. And you know what? When I need him, I call on him. So he's really real to me. When something's bad, when something's off, I'm praying to God, I'm crying to Hashem, I'm doing the right thing on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It's so real. And then suddenly, in a moment of desire, in a moment of weakness, what am I willing to do? I'll throw God away for a hamburger. Or something stupid. I know I shouldn't. It's not even a big deal. I don't even like it that much. That's a moment of insanity. That's a moment of nechoshet. And therefore the Mizbeach comes to forgive. How does it remind you? It says this nechoshet Mizbeach, that is fool's gold. It doesn't even have anything else in it but what? Adama. And that, my friends, is the last bit in this story, this nechoshet. And I'll share with you why. It was there, it was designed. Adam ki yakrib mikem korban lamonai. A person amongst you who brings a korban. A korban is something. The word korban, which means sacrifice, the root of that word is kiruv, karov, to become close. The sacrifice helps a person become close. How? He ponders in what way. We know that I did the sin, I should pay, I did the crime, I should pay the time. Right? That's how it should be. But comes this korban, and the korban is instead of me. Why? What are you doing, my friends? In the slaughtering, in the giving up of this animal, the person is meant to understand that the animal self that he has, that pulls him to make these mistakes, the urges, the primal wants and needs of a person, they took control of the drive of the steering wheel. So in that moment, what happens? This Adam, he became a behemah. Adam ki yakriv mikem korban lamonai min hakesavim, right? He should bring it from the sheep, from the etc., from the animals. In that moment, he says, I'm sacrificing the animal. I'm driving the stake through the snake. I'm returning myself to my deepest self. And suddenly the Mizbeach allows us for a reset button to recognize this arrogance. It's fake. The thing is being presented. It's fool's gold. How do you feel the minute you've done the sin? It gives you these sweet nothings. It whispers in your ear. And then what do you feel like after you did the sin? You feel better or you feel worse? You feel full or you feel empty? You feel happy or you feel guilty? The Nechoshet says, this is what it is on the surface. You get past the surface, what's underneath it? Adama. Adama is the possibility latent in every human being. That is the name of humanity. He's called Adam. Why? Because he was taken min ha'adama, from the earth. The deepest sources explain that the word Adama has two possible readings. One is Adama, earth, nothingness, the ground. But the other is Adameh, which means I will be compared to, I will be like God. Just beneath the surface of every human being, the fool's gold where he pretends like he's God, he's so special, he's so righteous, he's so this, he's so that. If a person can scratch past that, past the animalistic self that sits on top of the Mizbeach Nechoshet, look, and this is the idea, you're supposed to look at the Mizbeach and see, this is the result of the Nechoshet, the burning animals on top of it, the sacrifices, the people that fell to its allure, to its siren sound. But if I can get past that, underneath that is the Adameh, the restart, the new possibility of a person reaching up and fulfilling their potential again. Look back at the mistakes that you made, and I'm sure there are very few, because this is an unbelievably righteous looking room, okay? But the very few mistakes that you've made, so many of those mistakes were nechoshet mistakes. The promise of something that turned out to be something else. The idea of ego or pride that got us to a place of anger, of resentment. To take something because it's mine, because I'm strong. All of these things, my friends, the root of all avonot is in ga'ava. And that's why in the letter of Ramban, when he's telling his son, right, what does he talk about? He talks about the midah of anava. Why? Because the opposite of ga'ava is anava. Even though there's many midot to talk about, but anava is the quintessential midah. Because a person who's mastered that humility has mastered through that humility access points to the entirety of the Torah. That's why humility is prized above all else. May God bless us to be able to be exemplars of this nechoshet mizbeach. People who recognize what things are and what things aren't. Moments of value. How many times have you been in a fight where you forgot already what you were fighting about, and the point of the fight has now become to win the fight? That's a nechoshet moment. How many times have you said something, decided something, and someone argued with you in the family, and now the reason why you're arguing, you're going to argue with me? Nechoshet. This is not where the value is. Recognize those moments in your life and understand that just beneath them is the humility of the Adama, the restart, the comparison to God Himself. But it just takes a little scratching. Baruch Adonai Le'olam.